The clashes at universities across the country. Take a look at the scene right now. Protesters on campus there in North Carolina. And then overnight, protesters here in New York.
Zionist Jews are anti-Semitic. Have you listened to any Zionist, like Jewish, Christian, doesn't matter? Yes, saying Zionism is inherently anti-Semitic. Okay? Saying that Israel has to exist as a Jewish ethno-state and it actually corresponds to the fucking interests of all Jews around the world is unironically what the Nazis say about Jews, okay? And it's also what Zionists say about Jews. And yes, Zionist Christians, Christo-fascists, and Zionist Jews alike absolutely are unimaginably anti-Semitic to anti-Zionist Jews.
At Columbia barricaded themselves inside the school, and now the university is taking more action. Stephanie Ramos is there on the scene for us. Good morning to you, Stephanie.
Robin, good morning. Despite warnings of suspension and expulsion for students in...
You need to reconsider your definition of Zionism? What? Why do you spend so much time on Twitter? Zionist Jews are anti-Semitic. You need to reconsider your definition of Zionism. Just fucking say what you think is the definition of Zionism and let's pick it apart, chatter. Let's not do this song and dance. Come on. Come on, brother. Go ahead. Hit me with the fucking liberal Zionist line that absolutely zero people believe. Come on. Let's move it along. Let's move it along. Yeah, let's redefine not what you see with your fucking own two eyes. Let's redefine it. Zionism is fascism. Okay, that's it. That's it. It's that simple. The Zionist project is a fascist one, is a settler colonial project and objectively a fascist one, much like every settler colonial project is ultimately a fascist one. There's an in-group, out-group dynamic that exists in the fascist context. It is predicated upon Jewish people coming in and ethnically forcibly displacing the indigenous population, specifically of non-Jews, from that area, purging them from that land, and rebuilding a nation state on demographic concerns that they have. When Israel talks about its demographic concerns, they're talking about making sure that they have a Jewish majority. Literally, no one cares? What do you mean no one cares? What? Come on, go ahead. Tell me what you think Zionism is, and let's move on.
Involved in the encampment here at Columbia University. Some pro-Palestinian protesters set up more tents on campus and stormed that academic building overnight. They say it is all in support of Gaza. Overnight, pro-Palestinian protesters gathering outside Columbia.
Like, there is no, in my opinion, okay, the way I see it, there is no difference. There is literally no difference between being like, ISIS is awesome and doing this for Islam. They literally are abiding by the interests of the entire ummah. There's no difference between stating that as a fact when it's, you know, far from factually accurate and obviously completely wrong, and saying Israel represents the monolithic interest of the international Jewish population. Okay? That's it. That's it. There's no difference.
University's Hamilton Hall, and then storming the building. Video capturing students slamming desks, breaking windows, and barricading themselves inside. Just after 12:30 this morning, dozens of students left the encampment and entered the hall. Students defiant, refusing to dismantle their encampment.
You need to stop bombing. You need to stop indiscriminate killing, massacre of Palestinians in Gaza. That's how you end the war.
At least one person arrested Monday outside Columbia's gates, seen here being taken into custody.
Oh my God.
And overnight at Virginia Commonwealth University, a large crowd of pro-Palestinian protesters clashing with police in riot gear. This video showing police spraying what appears to be pepper spray at protesters. The university telling ABC News multiple arrests were made and claiming that many individuals involved were not students. This as similar demonstrations and clashes now playing out at more than 60
I don't think comparing Zionism and ISIS is an apt comparison because essentially zero Muslims support ISIS and most Jews above 30 consider it to be an important part of their Jewish identity. And the better analogy is Islam and Saudi nationalists saying this as an anti-Zionist Jew. I understand what you're saying, except the outcome is ISIS-style behavior. I know that from a messaging perspective, I shut the conversation off for anyone over the age of 35, okay? I know. But the reality is that just because there is a shit ton more support and a lot more defense of that kind of behavior doesn't mean that, like, it is not a correct analogy. It is an apt comparison. It's just not one that I can make if I want to get anyone over the age of 35 on my side. I can't, and I recognize that.
college campuses across the U.S. At the University of Texas at Austin, dozens arrested as protesters and police in riot gear clashed. At the University of Florida, 9 protesters arrested. The school saying the University of Florida is not a daycare and we do not treat protesters like children. They knew the rules. They broke the rules. Jewish students on both sides of the issue, some who are pro-Israel, say they've been harassed.
It's not easy to say we're alone when the whole university is practically against us.
At USC, administrators canceling their main commencement ceremony due to protests. Many of the soon-to-be graduates missed their high school graduation due to the pandemic.
My high school just had a drive-through graduation. I personally was really looking forward to having this main ceremony and traditional graduation for my whole life.
Back here at Columbia University, officials have not commented on the actions of those students that stormed that building overnight. As for the talks between student negotiators and university officials, those are at a standstill. But guys, already so many students here have been suspended.
All right, Stephanie, our thanks to you. We're going to bring in our chief legal analyst, Dan Abrams. So much at play here. And one concern is the rights, the First Amendment rights of the students. How does free speech play into all this? How does it factor in?
So the First Amendment is not absolute, right? Think about libel laws, right?
Bro, these are never arguments that they make about Nazis, okay? Like actual anti-Semitic people. Only when it's about something that the American government has decided is good do we start launching these like, well, you know, cops do have to fucking crack some skulls every now and then. It's such a fucking hilarious moment. And this never would have happened. This is something that pro-Palestinian advocates have known for decades. This is something that I have talked about for decades, about like the real anti-free speech, the real actual state suppression of speech only happens to pro-Palestinian protesters, only happens to like a movement like BDS and nothing else. Fascists will always be protected by the government, and they are. Free speech extends only to fascists and only to right-wing sentiment, okay? The only reason why we're having this conversation right now in this regard is because there is broad momentum on the Palestinian side, especially by those under the age of 35. Okay? That's it. That's what I mean when I say I'm very hopeful about this moment. I've never seen so much awfulness and so much hope at the same exact time. Bro, your hypocrisy is funny. Explain what you mean by that, please. I would love to hear what you mean by that, Q Patriot 12. Because when fascists roam around campuses or do demonstrations, their goal is clear. It is the ethnic cleansing of minority populations. They very openly state that, including Jewish people as well, like actual fascists. Okay? That's what it is. So that limitation doesn't extend to those guys at all. The limitation only extends when you say, hey, our tax dollars and our tuition shouldn't go to funding an apartheid regime, to funding a genocide. Okay? So go ahead. Explain to me how I'm hypocritical. I would love to hear from Q Patriot 12, Mr. QAnon himself in the building.
Someone can say something about someone else and they can get sued over it. And they can't say, well, it's my First Amendment right to say it. There are restrictions that are allowed within the First Amendment. To have a
This is not one of them, by the way. Like, this definitionally is a violation of free speech. State suppression of speech. Speech does have limitations. Okay? You can't do libel. You can't slander people. That's true. Okay? And you also can't yell fire in a fucking theater or whatever, the classic example. So obviously there are restrictions on what you can and can't say. However, having said that, you absolutely can engage in civil disobedience against unjustifiable hierarchies. You can absolutely, and you must absolutely engage in civil disobedience and protest and take advantage of the First Amendment in the exact same way that these students are doing. State restriction and state suppression upon these demonstrations is a direct violation of First Amendment rules. Anyone who fucking champions the police or the National Guard in this circumstance is unironically the only people that are anti-free speech.
Parade in a city, you still have to get a permit. You can't just say we're allowed to do it. And the key here is that the universities and the authorities would say, we're not targeting what they're saying. It's not because of what flag they're holding up. It's because of the actions that they're taking. It's that they're shutting down buildings. They're trespassing on private property. And as a
That's bullshit. Those are all bullshit reasons to actually suppress free speech. That's fucking bullshit.
result, that's not protected by the First Amendment.
Right, the students who are not protesting have rights as well to live their lives, to study, to not be disrupted.
Correct. And most importantly, the university has the authority to determine what they do and they don't want on their campus.
Is there a difference between public and private universities?
There is. Look, you have much...
Bro, you can make the same argument against the civil rights movement. Yes, and they did. The very same people that represent the very same interests, rather, in the 60s, said the exact same things against the student demonstrations, both during the civil rights movement and also during the anti-war Vietnam protests. They said the same shit. This is the role of the media. The media is supposed to not actually be contentious to positions of power, but to basically fucking sedate the masses and tell them that, like, no, you do feel good when police are beating the shit out of student protesters for the crime of engaging in civil disobedience against the genocidal state that we are funding and facilitating and offering fucking political cover for. They did this in the 80s during the apartheid protests. That's it. You can't do something illegal in the name of protesting. It's entirely possible to protest without breaking the law. Yeah, except for when you use random, ridiculous fucking laws that you write Like, for example, anti-BDS legislation that exists in 35 different states in the United States of America. Okay? There are ridiculous laws. You understand that, right? Specifically designed to stop people from organizing. The law is nothing in this situation. The law is written by the very same people who don't want you to fucking speak out. The law is written by the very same people who say, shut the fuck up about this Israel shit. The civil rights movement didn't destroy property or disrupt common people. Yeah, except neither does this, and it doesn't fucking matter. You are a fucking idiot. Every single thing that you just said, people said about the civil rights movement as well. The only difference is your books that you read at school now tell you that it was actually good that the civil rights movement happened because it was good. You are staring at the modern version of that exact same movement, and you are portraying yourself as against this movement while simultaneously claiming that the civil rights movement was good. If you lived in that same era, you would have not liked the civil rights movement for the same exact reasons. Doesn't that weird you out? Blocking traffic and inconveniencing innocent people just trying to get to work simply isn't okay. It's interesting that you're talking about blocking traffic right now, but we're not talking about blocking traffic. Why are you going back to the blocking of traffic right now while we're talking about campus protesters? These students are not blocking traffic. You thought that that was a better argument that you could argue on. r/centrist comments, political cartoon reflecting some of the public perception on MLK in the 60s. Yeah. Chatter's doing that right now. Because I just got here. Here it is. Students at Columbia University calling for the divestment from South Africa. All wars are bad except this one. All protests are good except this one. Yeah. This is why I also think it's so dumb that people think that, like, oh, the next generation is going to save us or whatever. Okay? The next generation is going to save us. No, man. There's always the same exact people. There's always the same exact people with the same exact attitude. There's always still a proclivity to defend. There's always still going to be people that defend power, that don't want to analyze the situation on the boundaries of morality. They want to look at it with boundaries of legality and say, no, this is against the law. Why? Because the lawman said so. And if you are not personally moved by thousands, tens of thousands of children being ruthlessly slaughtered with our tax dollars, then yeah, you don't give a shit. So the only thing you care about is like, oh, they disrupted something and I don't like it. The media told me that it's bad. Just say you hate Jews. I know that it is very desperate for you right now. I understand. I understand that you can't actually argue on the boundaries. You can't actually argue on what Israel is doing is just. So you have to turn around and say, no, there must be another motivator here. He must not actually, he could not possibly care about tens of thousands of Palestinian children being slaughtered. He must actually hate Jews. Okay? It's sad. And then the fucking NPC dialogue line comes out. Okay? In his mind, he's like, I wish he was anti-Semitic. I know he's not, but I wish he was, because it would make it so much easier. It'd be so much easier if I could just say that this guy is anti-Semitic and move on. Another 10-7 lever, I suspect. Some level there, 3-year hate watcher. Yeah. You can defending the student terrorists when you were against January 6th. Anyway. King Traps 123. Palestine hates gay people. Palestine is far right. I do not care. Do you understand? Because the biggest threat to the gay Palestinians right now is not Hamas, it's Israel. Israel's bombs do not fucking only kill straight Palestinians. And even if that was the case, that still wouldn't be just. Not a single thing that you have mentioned makes fucking sense. Okay? It's additionally ironic because Israel doesn't give a shit about gay people either. It's just propaganda for the most part, pink washing. You know? And yet you have to act like resentment towards the apartheid regime of Israel and the genocidal actions that they have taken must stem from some other secret anti-Semitism, even though you've been in here since 2021. So you know I have taken the care and consideration to purge any kind of anti-Semitic sentiment in this community. Half of the death threats that I used to get up until October 7 was specifically neo-Nazis targeting me because of that. And yet, I like hearing your arguments, but they're always one-sided. What? Of course it's one-sided. Yes. I am on one side. I am not on the Israeli apartheid regime's side. There is no two sides to a genocide. You want to hear me? Both sides of genocide is not going to happen. And you can't fucking try to neutralize the argument by saying, oh, it's just a buzzword. It's not just a buzzword. Okay? Of course I'm not going to be a fucking centrist. No one is a centrist on this issue. Everyone just fucking lies and acts like they are a centrist. You just want someone to basically tell you things that you agree with and act like they're objective, act like they are being neutral on this issue. They're not. They're not. You want me to sedate you with a lullaby. You want me to be like, oh yeah, no, it's just like there's a, you know, it's a complex issue. It's not a complex issue morally. It's not complex at all. It's only complex if you don't want to see the reality. That's it. You don't want to see the reality, and you're desperately looking for different words to avoid the top of the hour ad break, to avoid the reality right in front of you. And that's why you keep saying, oh, it's complex. It's not that complex. At the top of the hour, there's a 3-minute ad break. If you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe. You can do that for $5, or you can do that for free with a Twitch Prime by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, where you get 1 free Prime subscription a month. Okay? That's it. Here's the 3-minute ad break now. Thanks for your thoughts. Okay, well, I hope you don't think that I hate Jews, chatter. There are many Jewish people in this community. It's ridiculous. I spent most of my fucking political advocacy and still continue to shit on anti-Semitism of all different varieties. The notion that I hate Jews is abhorrent. Dan Fan is back. Hamas didn't attack Israel on October 7th. We aren't even talking about this right now. No, brother, we have been talking about Israel's actions. You wouldn't be talking about it. That's the difference. Because it's not like the month of October before the 7th was great for Palestinians at all. Or the year 2023, which happened to be the deadliest year for Palestinian children so far before October 7th. The only problem here for you is that now you are forced to defend Israel, and Israel's actions are becoming less and less defensible. So it's just kind of hard, and it fucks you up a little bit. That's it. He's back. I tried to fucking talk to him yesterday, and he's back again. Maybe if Hamas didn't attack a music festival on October 7th, Israel wouldn't be bombing them right now. Yeah, totally. Yeah, definitely. It's because they attacked a music festival. That's why Israel bombed them. No, dude, Israel is bombing them as they have done time and time again under numerous sieges, this time being the most vicious one of all, because Israel wants to forcibly displace the Palestinian population in the Gaza Strip and take it over again. That's it. If that was the case, there would be no there would be no Gaza Strip to begin with. Cover all sides, Hassan. Yeah. Anyway. Why do motherfuckers have the capacity to only remember the last 1 to 2 years? I don't think you understand. It's not that they have the capacity to only see the last 2 to 3 years. It's that they want to be able to argue something that is like objectively indefensible. Genocide is objectively indefensible by many, okay? That's why it's always about like the actions of the resistance groups that caused this genocide for 75 fucking years, always and forever. That's it. This conflict has existed for 75 fucking years, even longer than 75. And yet, now we're talking about it. It is not the actual hurt. It is not the actual violence that people here in the United States of America are frustrated by. Well, many are actually frustrated by the violence. That's why they're protesting. It is the fact that they have to talk about it that frustrates them. They just want to go back to everybody shutting the fuck up and Israel doing what it has to do to deal with the Palestinian problem without Americans noticing. That's what everybody in here that says this is complex wants to happen. That's it. Problem is, it's not going away. Chowder got to understand, regardless of what you think, and I had friends at the Nova Music Festival, this war makes no sense for Israelis unless you want a genocide. There is no day after when every day is the end of days. Any political end, from occupation to two-state talks, will deal with children who just witnessed the destruction of the world. April sun on October rubble, and this war is the same senseless genocidal war it ever was. People that want to say it's complicated basically just want you to shut the fuck up, which is part of the reason why you should not shut the fuck up. Okay? And as far as like Hamas started it, It's the same principle behind the fucking Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. It's the Jewish resistance groups that started it. They should have never attacked. They should have never tried to liberate themselves by force from the Warsaw Ghetto. Think about how badly the Nazis then turned around and killed all of their family members. There should have never been a slave revolt. What were they thinking? That's what you sound like. CNN poll, voters age 18 to 35. On April 2020, Biden was plus 31 on this group. On April 2024, Trump is up 11 points. Warsaw Ghetto Uprising was the analogy I used to show my mom the double standard and hypocrisy in their framing. Yeah. Don't you think the Columbia students breaking into Hamilton Hall kind of makes the protest look bad? The protest should be strictly safe. So what are students supposed to do when the police come fucking cracking down and start cracking skulls? Hamilton Hall, by the way, is ironically the exact same building that the protesters occupied. The student protesters took over in 1968 as well. So there's also historic significance there. So I don't know if you are anti anti-Vietnam War protests or your anti-apartheid protests in 1985, I believe. But, you know, students are basically doing the exact same thing that previous generations did when they saw something totally unjustifiable. Here is a historic occasion from Norm Finkelstein. By seizing control of Hamilton Hall, students at Columbia University have anchored in historical memory the nexus between the horrors inflicted in Vietnam that was the hallmark of my generation with the horrors inflicted in Gaza that is the hallmark of the new generation. It is a testament to the majesty of these young people that have risked their futures for the sake of a poor, powerless people halfway around the world in order to uphold that sacred principle that every life is worthy and the murder of none shall pass in silence. As Abraham Lincoln famously quoted, "The judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether." The right of the people in Gaza to live is an eternal truth. May the young soldiers in Hamilton Hall be honored and blessed for not countenancing, come what may, its extinguishment. The question I guess I have to ask people is that, is there anything you care about so much? Is there ever going to be an instance where you find yourself actually putting yourself in harm's way? Even for others, and if not for others, for yourself, for your loved ones. Okay? The conversation around the student protests is deliberately misdirected, is deliberately deflected away from the actual goals of the student protesters, the actual goals and the demands made by the student protesters, the interest in reframing the awareness and centering the conversation on the plight of the Palestinians, both students who have lost their fucking schools as Israel has destroyed every single college campus and pretty much every single school in general over a relentless 7-month bombing campaign. You must understand, they want people to pay attention to what is going on in Gaza, and they want people to put an end to our complicity in this genocide, our complicity, the American government's complicity, the universities and their own complicity in the way that the tuition that they're paying for is going to corporations that fund and facilitate and defend the Israeli genocide, the Israeli apartheid regime. These are perfectly just demands. And because that conversation is a tough one to have for many Americans who want to defend Israel because they're careers pieces of shit, they're opportunist careerists tasked with undermining any kind of protest movement. Because of that, people just deflect away. They try to shift the attention away. They try to talk about me, me, me. They try to recenter the attention to their feelings. How does this protest make me feel? It makes me feel bad because it forces me to reckon with all of the awful things that the American government is doing. And I don't like that.
Much more autonomy when you're a private university to say this is what we want. You don't have to worry about being an arm of the government. With that said, even public universities in this context, again, think about a public park. We've seen it many times. Encampments can be built in a public park, and eventually the authorities can say, sorry guys, we're going to come in. You can't have this in a public park. It's the same basic idea here. Even though there's more protections in a public university than private, doesn't mean that
you can't do something illegal while protesting. I guess when we, the liberal Israelis, blocked the Ayalon highway or road because of Bibi's reform, it was unjustified and bad. Give this pseudo-liberals thing they agree with the protest and they'll break into a bank for it. Yeah. No, everybody loved that. Everybody loved when Israel was protesting against the Benjamin Netanyahu government. People were championing and people were celebrating and people thought it was awesome. Difference is, of course, when and people in Israel are breaking the law right now as well. They're still fucking blocking highways and shit. Right now, against the Benjamin Netanyahu war cabinet, they are protesting against the fucking war cabinet's decisions in continuing the bombing campaign and not extracting the fucking hostages. People are understandably very frustrated with that. Their friends and family members are trapped in Gaza with seemingly no way out. Isn't that weird? Isn't that always weird? If the media says that a protest is good, if it's Hong Kong, then it's good. You know what I mean? It's against the CCP after all. If it's a protest against COVID lockdowns, against China's zero COVID policies, it's good. Some of these protests I do agree with, by the way, even if it is done against the Chinese state, which everyone thinks I dick ride into oblivion. Well, isn't that weird? We get to dictate what kind of protests are perfectly valid.
The public universities can't take action.
Dan Abrams.